Howdy, folks. It is Thursday, April 24th, and welcome to another edition of TASB Talks, the podcast bringing you the latest happenings and insights into Texas public education. I'm your host, Matt Mitchell, Senior Communications Specialist here at TASB, and I am joined once again by resident man on the street, our recurring guest, and also Division Director of TASB Government Relations, Docs Gonzalez. Docs, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks. And I think I said I'd bring somebody else today, but folks are busy today. They're out at the Capitol, and there's a lot of stuff happening. So
I've
you're
heard.
stuck with me.
So I've heard. That's all right. That's all right. We can deal with it for now, and then just kidding. Anyway, speaking of busyness, it's been a busy last week or so, as it's usually the case this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I believe it was last Wednesday, April 16th, it was the long-awaited Texas Two-Step Day at the House, as many are calling it. That being two of the more important headline-grabbing public education bills were debated and then voted on in the Texas House. So why don't you give us an update on what happened last week?
Right. So you are correct. There were two bills that will have significant impact on public schools across the state. And the first one is House Bill 2, which is Chairman Brad Buckley's school finance bill that he has worked with several members and stakeholders over the past several weeks to get into some kind of shape, to get it to the floor and hopefully over to the Senate. And that's exactly what happened last week. Was he presented a bill that infuses about $8 billion of new money into public education. The bulk of that is coming through an increase to the basic allotment of, I think it's about $4 billion. It's just shy of that, I think, to raise it up to $6,555 per student. Right now, we're at $6,160. So that is probably the biggest component of it. But it also does things like increase the teacher incentive allotment. It increases the small and mid-sized school allotment. And it helps to increase money for special education by moving to an intensity-based system of funding. So instead of funding based on location for students, you're now hopefully the state will be funding students based on the amount of services they require, the intensity of those services. And so that's something that we haven't been doing in Texas, and so hopefully that's something that our members have definitely been asking for, and hopefully that makes it across the finish line. But there was a lot of debate on it, not as much as there was on Senate Bill 2, the voucher bill, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But they did get this bill, House Bill 2, off the House floor and over into the Senate, and we're hearing that it could be heard as soon as next week in committee, and really, it's expected that Chairman Brandon Creighton, the chair of the Senate Education Committee, will be the one to carry House Bill 2 and move that forward. So it'll be his decision on whether he wants to make changes to it or amendments to that bill before bringing it up into committee, and then what kind of amendments he may accept on the floor of the Senate. So still a lot of work to be done on that bill. It's only halfway through, and we'll see what that looks like. So I've been telling school board members and administrators, if you have things that you want to see stay in the bill, or you want to see things added to the bill or things changed, now's the time to be calling up Senator Creighton or other folks on the Senate Education Committee and telling them what you would like to see on that bill. So that's what's going on with that, and that was a relatively painless process.
I was going to say the vote on that was it wasn't across the board. Like it was pretty close to. I mean, it was like 144 to 4. I don't have the exact number, but it was pretty close to being unanimously voted upon and passed.
No, you're right. It was 144 to 4 on that bill, so very close to unanimous. But the floor debate was relatively genteel. It was a good debate, and they moved forward. But then they took up Senate Bill 2.
Right. That was not quite as seamless of a process. I know that one they got done with HB 2 about mid-afternoon that day, and then they moved on to I think they had a couple other bills, and they got into SB 2, and that one went very late into the night, possibly into the following morning, didn't it?
It was into the next morning. I don't remember the exact time, but I do remember when I sent out my alert, it was already the 17th. So
Oof.
it was the next day technically. So, but that one was just a very different debate. There were a lot of attempts to amend the bill and different things, and really the bill stayed pretty clean. There were a couple of amendments made to it, but nothing really um, that affected the overall intent of the bill. And as folks remember, that bill is the one that creates an education savings account voucher for folks to use that allows families to access 85% of state and local funding for schools to use for a private school. And there's a homeschool component that I think is about $2,000. And then families with students who have a disability can access whatever funding that they would be entitled to at the public school up to $30,000. So that wouldn't really be known until that evaluation is done, and then that process moves forward. Uh, but that bill is some of the changes that they made through the process is they capped it to $1 billion for this first biennium to make sure that it stays within that appropriated amount. There are some accountability provisions in there to require norm reference tests of kids who are using an education savings account. There is a provision that was added that uh, allows for students who move back, like if they are using a voucher at a private school and then they move back to the public school midway through the year, they won't count against that school's accountability rating for that year. So the school can work to catch them back up, because as we've seen in other states, especially for your at-risk kids, if you're leaving and coming back, you're usually coming back further behind from a private school than you are ahead. So those are kind of things that were debated a lot. And then they did eventually pass that bill, and so the difference between these two bills now is that House Bill 2, as a House bill, now goes over to the Senate for deliberation.
Right.
The Senate bill, because it came over from the Senate and was picked up by a House sponsor, Brad Buckley, that bill is now essentially passed by both chambers. And what would usually happen is that they would go to a conference committee, because there's pretty significant differences between the House version and the Senate version. But we've already heard word from Senator Creighton that he's going to accept the changes that the House made to Senate Bill 2. So that bill effectively will move on now to the governor for his signature. So that I don't think that they've made that official motion yet to accept those changes, to concur in the changes made by the House. And it could always change. If he hasn't done it yet, he can always later decide to not concur, and they can still go to conference committee. But I think he had a tweet out saying that he was going to concur in changes. So that is pretty much a done deal. HB2, we're still waiting to see what happens on the flip side when it gets to the Senate.
So as we keep our eye on HB2 going forward, what else has been going on the Capitol in your world?
Well, on that same night, there were a couple of bills or one bill, I should say, that is pretty impactful to public schools, and that's school safety funding. And Senate Bill 260 by Senator Joan Huffman and sponsored by Representative Bonin in the House would double, in some cases, the school safety allotment for, as you know, it's either per student or per campus, and it increases that amount. And so they passed a bill out of the House that increases the per student safety allotment from $10 to $14 per student, and then increases the per campus allotment from $15,000 to $37,000 per campus. And so that is different than what came out of the Senate. In the Senate, they doubled the facility amount, the per campus amount, from 15 to 30. But the student amount, they raised it to $28 per student. So that's a big difference there. 28 to 14 and 37 to 30. So we will have to see what they agree upon, and they have to, the House and Senate have to decide which version they like better, and that'll happen in conference committee likely, since that is that's a money difference, and Joan Huffman may accept that change, but they may decide that they want to put more towards per student funding. So we'll see. But Another bill that just passed this week, more recently, Representative Fairley had a bill to prohibit cell phone use or electronic device use, during instructional time at schools. And so I know that's something that I've heard a lot from others, from school board members asking about, what's happening with this bill, what do we have to do, and and so it seems so far like it's moving its way through the process, and we'll see what happens when it gets over to the Senate. But for those that don't know, the bill effectively prohibits the use of personal communication devices like Apple Watches or iPads or phones during instructional time on campuses.
If you want to keep track of these two bills and all other bills that TASBGR is tracking, again, make sure you're subscribed to the legislative report, which Docs sends out once or twice a week going forward. And on that note, Docs, thanks for being here. We appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got many other things to get back to today and this week, so I appreciate you as always stopping by.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for tuning in as always. Again, you can find us on YouTube at TASB News, and you can find us on Apple and Spotify if you just want to check out the audio version. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.